students. It's such a pleasure to see you guys online, and I hope you have a chance to access this story. And before this, that you've been having a great day with lots of lessons and lots of learning, and that you're safe in the comfort of your home, happy and healthy with your family. Today I have a very special story for you, and this story is about the very, very beginning of time, way long time ago. Not 1 year ago, not 100 years ago, but 4,600,000,000 years ago. And at that time, it was completely dark and cold everywhere. It was so dark. If you were to close your eyes and even squeeze them tight with your hands, that darkness would still be bright as our sun. It was our night would seem bright compared to how dark it was during this time. And it was freezing. In fact, it was so cold that ice would actually feel like a hot lava to us. It was colder than you can imagine, and darker than our darkest night. And in that dark, icy, vast mass of space, this ginormous cloud of dust, of light and heat, started to float by. And as it was whizzing by, it warmed up the space. And in that light and heat, in that cloud, everything that makes up everything that we have here on Earth, and our sun, and our clouds, and the birds, and the trees, everything started in that cloud of light and heat. Our rocks, our moon, everything was just light and heat. And it was this, like air, this hot, brilliant, shiny air going through. And then everything came into being from that cloud, including us. And when we came to the earth, we said, I wonder who made all of this. And I wonder what made all of this. And how was all of this made? And why was it even made in the first place? So, as humans, because we have such curiosity, and we explore the world with our five senses, our ears, our eyes, our nose, our tongue, our taste, and our sense of touch. We explored the world and looked for answers. And some of our ancestors, our wise ancestors, both men and women, asked those same questions and came up with some answers. And we went to those ancestors and said, who made all of this? What made all of this? How was all of this made? And why was it made? And those very wise people said, everything that was made perfectly. And it was made without having a body, eyes, hands to make it with. And everything you see today, what you ate for breakfast, what you slept in, your own body. In fact, even the germs that are invisible on the surface of your skin, all of that was made. And all of it was following laws. And all of it still has work to do 4,600,000,000 years later till today. In fact, the birds, when they're chirping and they open their wings and they're flying, they're obeying their laws. And when the rock sits and lets the water bump against it and the air and the sun to heat it, it is also following the laws. They may not know they're following the laws, but they know they're following something. And so when you hear the air blowing by you, or you see the bird flapping, or you see the fruit fall from the tree, or the leaves fall as well, or the flowers bloom up, they're all following the laws, and they're all having work to do. But before all of this came, let's bring our imagination back to that chaos of that dark, dark night and the freezing space and this big cloud of light and heat. And in that light and heat, drops fell out of that cloud. And one of those drops was our sun, and the other drop was our earth. And in that cloud of light and heat, the rest of the stars started to drop out. And the sun was so far away from the earth, but still its light could reach us. In fact, the light of the sun takes 8 minutes to get to the earth, even though it is millions and millions of miles away from us. Why is that? Because light travels so fast. In fact, like that, light has already gone around the earth 7 times. And the earth is 25,000 miles around. Snap your finger, and the sunlight has already gone around the sun 7 times. Imagine that. In fact, if we would try to get to the sun, if we were going to travel like light, if we sat in one of our cars and we went 100 miles per hour and never ever took a break, not to sleep, not to use the bathroom, not to eat, and we just drove and drove and drove and drove, it would take us 106 years without stopping or filling up the car with gas to get to the sun. But the sun's light gets to us like that, so quickly. So in 8 minutes, it comes to us all the way from million miles away. And its light can go around our earth 7 times in a split second. Wow. Just like the sun is following laws, everything that you see on earth was also following the exact same laws. And the first law that came was that all the things that were cold would huddle together just like you do when you're cold and get close. And all the things that were hot, would have to go up and expand. And then when they went out into space and got cold again, they would shrink back down and drop down, 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 down. And all of this was happening in the infinite of space. And it was happening on the sun, just like it was happening on the earth. And here you can imagine our sun with its flaming heat. And this sun, 1,000,000 times bigger than us, had the same rules. Everything that left and got cold had to sink back down, and then would heat back up and go back out, and then it would sink back down. And the same thing was happening on this little dot, which is our earth. Our earth is like a little dot compared to the sun, which is 1,000,000 times bigger. And so the things that got cold had to come together, and the things that were warm spread out. And just like that, we started having 3 states of matter. The things that were really cold came together and became solids. The things that were really hot kept spreading out like our air. And then we had our liquids, where the particles were not too hot or too cold, just right. And the particles attracted each other, but not too closely that they would hold tight. Just close enough that they could move and flow. And it was just like that. And so the solids got together and the particles took up less space. The liquids also got together and they took up space. And the air, they never got together. They were supposed to be close, but always spread out, in and out. You can hear that the particles are in there, even though you can't see them. And just like, it would be like taking stardust and sprinkling it in the water. And some of the particles come together and stick together. And some don't have an attraction to each other, and they stay far apart. And some huddle so close together, they make one new form. And so the particles were following laws. Some would stick really close together. Some would stick close together, but enough that they still had room to be separate. And some never touched each other. And that's how we have our solids, which attract each other really closely, our liquids, which are close, but not too close that they can't move around, and then our air, which never touch each other. They're always moving freely. And as these particles became hot, they would go up, and then they'd get cold and they'd go down, and they'd get hot and they'd go up, and they get cold and they go down. And soon it was like a little dance. And the hot particles went up and the cold particles went down. And it was a big dance party. Maybe you can imagine that there were lots of elves or fairies or magic beings who were all the hot things were going up into space. And when they cooled in that space, they would drop back down. And they danced and danced and danced until they got so tired. They said, okay, enough. Let's calm down. Enough dancing and let's settle. And they decided to also follow the rules and listen. And so, not only did hot and cold move, but the heavier things needed to go down. And that was one of the rules. Heavy things must go all the way down. Heavy things will go down. So if the heavier you are, the further down you'll be. And the lighter you are, the higher you will float. And so the heavier things went all the way down. And the lighter things, their rule was to float to the top. And 4,600,000,000 years later, just as we see today, they're still following that same rule. Heavier particles fall to the bottom, and lighter particles float to the top. Heavier matter floats, sinks to the bottom, and lighter matter floats to the top, even till today. So that was another rule to follow. The rule of attraction and the rule of our weight. In the middle of all of this, our Earth finally cooled down enough. And when it cooled down, it created this beautiful crust. And just like when you have a crust, remember there were still really, really hot things that wanted to burst through. Because then hot things need to go up. And so what happened? Giant explosions were happening, popping through the top. And here we go. As this crust was made, the hotter things still wanted to rise and still wanted to follow the laws. And so what happened? Volcanoes formed and they started to explode and come out, and all of that hot lava would explode out on top and form new land. And then that would make it hard. And again, the hot things underneath that crust wanted to explode up and through. And if we zoom in here, you will see the volcanoes kept exploding and exploding because hot things still have to rise up, and they would push through the surface and make more land. And the explosions kept happening over and over again, so much so that clouds of ash and residue were formed. If you were to zoom in here, this is what it was like on Earth. Oh man. And here we have the Earth with all the explosions coming out, and the hot ashes from the volcanoes floated up into the sky and made these gray clouds. And with those clouds, the sun could no longer see its beautiful friend. Said, oh no, what is happening here? And the volcanoes kept exploding and huge clouds were formed. and the air was foul and stinky. No life could form. And the clouds kept building and building and building until they rained and rained and rained. And that rain helped cool the earth, and it cooled it long enough so that finally water could be between the volcanoes, and the clouds disappeared, and the sun was again glad that it could gaze down on its friends. And now our earth had finally cooled down, so that all the oceans could be on the earth, the land could continue to form, and the gases could continue to make clouds, but this time friendlier clouds that would allow space for other gases to form. And so we had our liquids, our solids, and our gases all together, living in harmony, following the laws, and following and doing their work. And till this day, everything is following those laws. The laws of matter, of solids, liquids, and gases. The laws of attraction, where some particles attract each other and come together, and some stay far away from each other and respect their space. The law of our weight and volume, where the heavier things go to the bottom and the lighter things float to the top. And the laws of working in harmony, where the liquids and the solids and the gases began to form everything that is here on this planet. And so all of this, the earth and the sun looked at each other and said, this is all very beautiful. And everything that was formed, from the birds and the wind and the flowers and even us, are made of all these particles, and both on the inside and the outside. Everything is following these laws. And the way we learn these things, how did these wise men and women learn these things? They learned it just with their five senses. Because humans didn't come with backpacks with information and books that told us how everything was formed. Their gifts were a mind to imagine, a heart to love, and hands to serve. Those were the three gifts that humans were given to discover and create beautiful things on this earth. And we were given five senses to invent everything we know and enhance life for ourselves and for others. We were given our eyes to see, our ears to hear, a mouth to taste, our hands to touch, and a nose to smell. And with those five senses, that original technology, we were able to discover our original science and discover these laws today. And you are a scientist today too, because you have those five senses. You have that original technology, and you have that mind to imagine, to be curious. You have that heart to love, and you have hands to work and serve. And so together, we will continue to explore in science with these gifts. Even if we're far away, we can imagine we're together, and we can remember these laws and continue to explore together. And that's my story for the day. Stay tuned for more tomorrow. Bye.